A bitter lesson about misplaced trust weighed on his mind, reminding him of a past encounter that had left him to suffer the consequences alone. The memory strengthened his conviction in the one thing he could never bring himself to believe. Specifically, he distrusted any girl who offered him the slightest bit of kindness. This was the world of Yuta Tono, a high school student with a well-known reputation for cynicism. He shot a resentful glare at a crowd of girls as they hurried past, their attention fixed on someone else entirely. It was a familiar scene. He had been used as a stepping stone time and again by girls who only wanted to get closer to his popular older brother. After being exploited so many times, Yuta had made a firm vow to never place his trust in a girl again. Just then, the very girl from that painful memory materialized before him with a simple greeting. He saw her as just another one of them, no different from the rest. He attempted to dismiss her with a mumbled reply, but she wouldn't give up and repeated her own greeting. His patience wore thin and finally broke, yet she calmly stated that she just hadn't been able to hear him. Feeling trapped and flustered, he finally yelled a proper good morning right at her. In return, she offered a peaceful smile, completely untroubled by his angry reaction. Yuta stormed away, berating himself internally for losing his cool because of her. A single look back in her direction made his heart pound, a reaction that baffled him. He knew her as Isumi Hujyu, a classmate who had been seeking him out often. His deepest suspicions were confirmed when he overheard that she was considered a perfect partner for his brother. She suddenly moved in too close, and her question caused him to blurt out an answer in his confusion. The entire intense exchange had started with her asking what type of bread he liked. He watched her depart, completely bewildered by her peculiar behavior. Her friend then slyly suggested she check the cafeteria, since they would likely have his favorite bread. Later in class, Yuta found himself clutching that very melon bread. He was totally rattled by her ability to influence him. During gym, a friend nudged him, asking what he thought of Isumi's looks while she played basketball. His friends raved about her mysterious allure and excellent grades, but Yuta was unmoved. His skepticism felt warranted as he saw her demonstrate a profound lack of athletic ability. Despite her clumsy efforts, her friends cheered her on, but she could barely manage the ball. She confidently called for a pass and attempted an impossible shot that sailed far wide of the hoop. Yuta stared, dumbfounded, wondering if she could do anything successfully. And yet, after this spectacular failure, Isumi beamed with pride, leaving Yuta more baffled than ever. As Yuta cringed with secondhand embarrassment, he noticed Isumi glance back with a subtle, knowing expression. His friends immediately called him out for staring, a charge he furiously tried to deny. From the court, Isumi turned with a faint blush and a small smile of triumph. The whole situation threw Yuta into complete mental chaos, which shocked his friends. They confirmed his fears, insisting she was undeniably looking straight at him. As they turned to go, Isumi's gaze followed, her attention locked on their group. Later, at the end of the school day, Yuta was still tormented by his failure to grasp her motives. He realized that for all her strange actions, she had never once mentioned his brother. A dangerous thought crept into his mind. He imagined a possibility where she might genuinely like him. Reality came crashing back when he saw her fawning over someone else with the other girls. The object of their adoration was his older brother, Rei, who graciously took a notebook from a fan. Yuta's spirit sank as his worst fears came true, and he mentally lumped her in with everyone else. A chaotic scene erupted as a mob of girls trampled him in their desperate stampede toward his brother. He collapsed, defeated, recalling the endless cycle of girls feigning interest in him just to reach Rei. They would act friendly for a moment before walking right past him, their eyes already fixed on his brother just ahead. This constant betrayal was the very reason he swore never to trust any of them. But in that humiliating moment, a gentle voice asked if he was all right and offered a handkerchief. He looked up to find Isumi kneeling before him, the embodiment of the kindness he refused to believe in. She offered her handkerchief so he could clean himself up, rendering him speechless with her unexpected gesture. He wondered why she was helping him when the other girls were chasing his brother. Yuta confronted her directly, asking why she wasn't part of the fawning crowd. Izumi paused, her expression impossible to read, before she faced his accusation. She glanced at the crowd around his brother and asked why he would even think she belonged with them. Looking down at him, she revealed her simple reason. She had been looking for him. Her confident smile left no room for doubt as she stated that finding him was her only objective. Flustered, Yuta finally took the handkerchief she had been holding out. She watched him with a soft, satisfied expression, her act of kindness at last accepted. As she turned to leave, she casually mentioned that the handkerchief he held was her personal favorite. She left him with a simple instruction to return it, creating the perfect excuse for them to meet again. His mind, however, remained fixed on a single cynical thought. She had to be after his brother. The mere idea that she could genuinely like him sent his thoughts spiraling into denial. He clutched his head, flustered, swearing he would never be tricked again. Meanwhile, Isumi cheerfully rejoined her friend, who immediately commented on her triumphant mood. The scene changes to a different day, with Isumi suddenly asking for his zodiac sign. He remembered her frequent approaches lately, convinced it was all a scheme to get closer to his brother. Another memory surfaced of her cornering him at his locker just to force a greeting out of him. Back in the present, he grudgingly gave her an answer. He braced himself for a bizarre reaction, but she just thoughtfully repeated his answer as other students listened to their strange conversation. In a shocking move, she suddenly grabbed his tie and pulled him aggressively forward. Yuta recoiled in shock, demanding to know why she had yanked on his uniform. Just as quickly, she calmly handed the tie back, leaving him utterly baffled by her unpredictable nature. Her friend Urara then appeared, cheerfully announcing that blue was the lucky color for Virgos that day. Izumi coolly explained that she removed his tie because its dark green color was supposedly unlucky. Yuta was left speechless as the two girls presented their horoscope-based reasoning as a perfectly normal explanation. Clutching the tie, he readied himself to shatter her strange belief system with a dose of his own reality. He watched them walk away, resigning himself to the fact that he would never figure her out. Yuta tightened his grip, reaffirming his disbelief in horoscopes and his absolute refusal to trust her. His day immediately soured as a string of unfortunate events seemed to prove his cynical worldview right. Slumped at his desk, he thought about his terrible day while his friends noted his unusual exhaustion. He froze, horrified by the thought that her strange prediction might have been correct. As she fumbled with some small white charms, he thought he had finally figured out her simple mind. His theory was cut short as he slipped on one of the charms, her voice breaking through the noise. Losing his balance, he stumbled forward and crashed right into her. He stammered an apology, completely flustered, but she just gave him a cold, appraising look. Just then, a stampede of girls thundered past them, all screaming for his brother. She coolly remarked that if she hadn't been there, he would have been trampled by the mob again. He realized she had positioned herself as a shield, protecting him from the adoring crowd. She glanced back smugly, reminding him just how lucky he was that she was there. She then pointed to her blue-tipped hair, declaring it his real lucky color and completely shattering his composure. Yuta lost his temper entirely, demanding to know what was wrong with her twisted logic. The scene cuts to his brother Ray, effortlessly charming a crowd of adoring fans. In the hallway, two girls gossiped about Ray's younger brother attending their school. Yuta overheard them plotting to use him, which reaffirmed his deep-seated hatred for this dynamic. Back in the classroom, Isumi's friend excitedly noted Yuta's return. He walked with heavy steps, his mind on a loop, repeating that he could never trust girls. His gaze fell on Isumi, the one girl he distrusted above all others. He immediately confronted her, pointing out she had taken his seat. She calmly scooted to the edge of the chair, offering him the other half in a ridiculous motion. He concluded that even her bizarre classroom behavior was just part of a larger plan to get closer to his brother. His focus was shattered as Isumi leaned in, peering at his journal with unsettling curiosity. Her friend Urara suddenly appeared, gleefully announcing a surprise math quiz. Yuta was caught completely unprepared, realizing he was about to face a test he hadn't studied for. He could only stare in stunned silence as Isumi and Urara seemed untroubled by the impending academic disaster. The results came in, and Yuta glared at his abysmal score, which earned him a mandatory makeup test. His friends teased him without mercy, blaming his failure on being distracted by Isumi before the quiz. They laughed while comparing their high scores to his, rubbing salt in his academic wound. While his friends left for a fun evening, Yuta was stuck with the grim task of studying all night. Deciding home was full of distractions, he went to the school library for some serious work. As he settled in, he was completely unaware that his brother Ray was watching him from the floor above. Yuta struggled with a math problem until a notebook with the solution suddenly appeared next to him. He was startled to find Isumi leaning over his shoulder, calmly showing him his mistake. As she walked away, she casually asked if he was studying hard, leaving him speechless and covering his mouth. His mind raced, completely baffled about why his popular, mysterious classmate was in the library. He watched her browse the shelves, surprised she wasn't at some trendy social spot. He had imagined her at a fancy cafe, taking pictures for social media. To his horror, she pulled up a chair and sat down at the table right next to him. He stared at her, dumbfounded, but she just gave him a blank look while holding a book. Yuta was horrified to see she was reading a light novel with a title that perfectly mirrored his own paranoid thoughts. He demanded to know why she sat next to him, but she coolly said she thought he needed help. She leaned over, pointed to his empty notebook, and smugly confirmed he was completely stuck. He reluctantly admitted he was struggling with the math quiz, looking away in frustration. Yuta remembered his friends praising her intelligence, but he found it impossible to believe. His doubts seemed confirmed when she casually showed him her own test paper, which was covered in red ink. He leaped to his feet in a panic, completely thrown off by her strange behavior in the quiet library. With a smug grin, she flipped the paper over to reveal a perfect score, leaving him utterly speechless. He exploded in frustration at her relentless teasing, but she coolly reminded him that he had started it. She playfully shoved her perfect test in his face and then offered him a blank sheet to start over. With a knowing look, she confidently offered to tutor him personally on everything he got wrong. Overwhelmed by her sparkling and aggressive enthusiasm, Yuta threw his hands up and finally accepted her help. He remained wary, accusing her of simply memorizing the answers while she tutored him. After hours of work, Yuta triumphantly announced he had solved all the problems. His heart pounded as he turned to thank her, only to see her reading peacefully by the window. She revealed she had finished her own work long ago, implying she had just been waiting for him. Flustered, he shyly asked if she would be willing to check his answers. The realization hit him like a ton of bricks. If she was waiting for him, perhaps she actually liked him. She slid her chair right next to his, closing the distance between them to look at his work. Leaning in close, she confirmed his answer was correct with a soft, knowing smile. Her proximity and validation sent his heart into a frantic rhythm. Yuta's brain completely short-circuited, leaving Izumi to stare at his confused breakdown. Izumi suddenly announced her mom was home and left, leaving Yuta completely frozen in her wake. Thanks to her, he aced the makeup test the next day, much to the shock of his friend. The story flashes back to Yuta's first year of high school, showing him at a local supermarket. He was on a shopping trip, browsed the produce for dinner ingredients. Yuta grimaced at the price of cabbage, lamenting how expensive vegetables had become. He settled on carrots, wistfully thinking that some items were a luxury he couldn't afford. As he turned, he nearly collided with Isumi, who was also looking at vegetables. He stared in utter shock, completely baffled as to why she was at his local grocery store. She calmly asked if he was also shopping, and he could only manage a flustered confirmation. For a fleeting moment, Yuta couldn't help but notice that she looked quite pretty. He admitted to himself that seeing her in casual clothes was a refreshing change. He quickly looked away, convinced she was messing with his head again when he saw her basket was full of snacks. He immediately spiraled into a panic, berating himself for his thoughts while she watched him in confusion. She ignored his meltdown and coolly asked to see his shopping list. He begrudgingly handed it over, unable to refuse her silent demand. Yuta was stunned as she pointed out that his list was for dinner, but his basket was full of junk food. She clutched a box of snacks to her chest, completely ignoring his lecture. She then ordered him to put his own snacks back, insisting he could get them after buying the essentials. As he watched her walk away, still baffled, he saw her stop at the ice cream freezer. She suddenly turned and gave him an intense, questioning stare, catching him in the act of watching her. He tried to protest, but she snatched his list and took complete control of their shopping trip. After they checked out, she cheerfully thanked him for his help, leaving him utterly exhausted. She gave him a casual wave goodbye, leaving him to process the bizarre encounter alone. His mood immediately soured as he stood in the aisle, annoyed at himself for getting roped in. Just then, a familiar neighborhood auntie approached him with a mischievous look. Before he could escape, she interrupted his gloomy thoughts by asking about the girl he was with. The auntie's teasing question about whether Isumi was his girlfriend sent him into a blushing panic. He vehemently denied it, stammering that they were merely classmates, but she looked unconvinced. She explained she had assumed they were on a date because they seemed to be having so much fun. The comment made him pause, as he realized that despite her antics, he had never actually seen her laugh. He cynically imagined the only person she would ever truly smile for was his brother. His mind flashed back to the countless times he had overheard girls admitting they were only using him. Leaving the store, he felt a small victory, reaffirming his vow to never be deceived again. His resolve was immediately tested when he spotted Isumi standing outside in the pouring rain. A memory of her past kindness flashed in his mind, but he tried to dismiss it. He attempted to walk away, determined to convince himself her situation was not his concern. But his body moved on its own, and he found himself holding an umbrella over her head. Flustered, he avoided her gaze, muttering that he was only doing it so she wouldn't get sick. In a desperate move, he shoved the umbrella into her hands and turned to leave in the downpour. Yet somehow, he ended up walking home with her, sharing the very umbrella he tried to escape. They walked in awkward silence, huddled together. As the rain poured down, he questioned her motives, thinking most girls would never agree to share an umbrella like this. Isumi simply gave him a knowing look, completely unfazed by his internal turmoil. The close proximity made him nervous, acutely aware the umbrella was only built for one. His heart pounded in his chest, flustered by how little space there was between them. Even as they walked, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was all an act. He remained convinced every kind gesture was a calculated move to win his favor. Lost in his thoughts, he failed to notice a truck speeding towards a large puddle. He snapped back to reality, yelling a warning as he saw the impending splash. But before he could react, she shoved him aside, taking the full force of the dirty water herself. Drenched and flustered, Yuta insisted he was fine. While she asked about his well-being, she pointed out he wouldn't be soaked if he had just used the umbrella, a fact he couldn't deny. He stared in disbelief as water dripped from her hair, and she tried to stifle a laugh. To his utter shock, she broke into a genuine, heartfelt laugh at their ridiculous situation. Overwhelmed by her reaction, Yuta could only offer a quiet, defeated apology. She simply smiled, thanking him for his attempt to protect her and brushing off his denials. Just as the sun broke through, he concluded that she was a strange girl who laughed at the strangest moments. He realized she was a dangerous person he must watch out for. As she casually told him to head home, the story flashes back to his first year, establishing his height at 167 centimeters. His world was rocked when her friend revealed Isumi was the exact same height, calling them a perfect match. He desperately clung to a single centimeter, rounding his height up to 168 centimeters. While she remained a solid 167 centimeters, he gloomily chugged a drink, ignoring his friend's concerned chatter. He spotted Yumi at a vending machine, already the center of attention as other students praised her looks. The crowd swooned over her troubled expression, but Yuta was just parched and irritated by her indecisiveness. Even his own friends got involved, one calling out impatiently while the other simply admired her. After all that drama, it turned out she was just 10 yen short, and an exasperated Yuta bought the drink for her. The story then introduces the root of his problems, his older brother, Rei Tono, a man of legendary good looks. His presence was so dazzling that girls fainted in his wake, and roses were said to magically bloom behind him. He left a trail of falling rose petals, a sight Yuta watched with silent resentment. His friends pondered if Rei was an urban legend, but Yuta silently seethed, rejecting any possibility of being like him. It was time for a classroom seat change, a small event that could drastically alter a student's daily life. For Yuta, this meant the person he was most cautious of, Isumi Huju, was now a constant presence. His worst nightmare was realized as fate placed her in the desk directly beside him. She immediately leaned in close, expressing her hope that they would get along, much to his flustered surprise. As she scooted her desk even closer, Yuta slumped in defeat. Already overwhelmed, he glared at her, convinced this seating arrangement was a calculated trap he had failed to anticipate. A new resolve ignited within him as he decided to turn this misfortune into a golden opportunity. With a sly peek, he plotted to use this proximity to finally expose her hidden motives. His surveillance was cut short when she caught him, coolly claiming she was just looking at the mountains. She then leaned in for an intense, silent stare, sending him into a complete panic. He leaned in close, demanding to know if she was just another girl trying to get to his brother. She completely ignored his accusation, leaving him stunned as she gave a bizarre reason for looking out the window. His attention shifted to her desk, where all her school supplies were surprisingly cute and stylish. He contrasted her sparkling, organized space with his own plain setup. His investigation was interrupted by a strange, grumpy-faced keychain on her pencil case. She proudly introduced it as a popular character, asking his opinion on its cuteness. With a smug look, she held up the grumpy keychain and declared that it resembled him. The comparison sent him flying out of his seat as he furiously rejected the notion. Their classmates watched the chaotic exchange, remarking that the two of them looked like they were having fun. Yuta collapsed onto his desk, exhausted, realizing his surveillance attempt was a complete failure. Yuta cautiously peeked at her, completely unable to decipher her thoughts. He recalled how every student who sat next to him in the past had a hidden agenda, inevitably pestering him for information about his popular older brother. Despite sitting so close, he felt an astronomical distance between them. His surveillance was cut short when she turned to him, now wearing glasses. Yuta was completely stunned by this sudden change in her appearance. He awkwardly asked about her eyesight, and she explained she needed glasses for the back of the room. He realized her previous excuse about the mountains was a lie. A classmate asked if Yuta could see, and he smugly confirmed he had perfect vision. He proudly explained his good eyesight came from being an outdoorsy kid, a fact that seemed to impress her. He connected her bad eyesight to her lie just as the teacher prepared to call on someone. His train of thought was shattered when the teacher suddenly called his name. Yuta broke into a cold sweat, realizing he had no idea what the question was. Isumi whispered a single cryptic word, leaving him confused. He stared at her, desperately trying to decide if her hint was a trap or genuine help. His mind flashed with images of her and his brother, fueling his paranoia. With a determined clench of his fist, he made a split-second decision. He reluctantly stood and gave the answer she provided, bracing for the outcome. The teacher beamed, enthusiastically confirming his answer was correct. Yuta collapsed into his chair, shocked that she had actually helped him. He leaned over, whispering a flustered thank you. She responded with a smug smile, clearly enjoying his reaction. Her confident gaze sent a wave of heat across his face, leaving him rattled. He watched her happily twirl her pencils, baffled by how much she seemed to be enjoying his turmoil. Deciding to trust her just this once, he asked why she didn't just switch seats. She leaned in close, her proximity catching him off guard as he waited for her answer. With a serene smile, she simply stated that she liked her current seat. Her cryptic response left him more confused than ever. Just as the bell rang, she suddenly raised her hand, catching his attention. She pointed to the seating chart, questioning the arrangement of the last row. Her friend offered to switch, but Isumi calmly refused, her gaze fixed on the chart. Meanwhile, Yuta's friends enviously offered to trade places with him. He furiously rejected their offer, calling them out for trying to take his lucky spot. Izumi turned with a sparkling, triumphant smile, clearly satisfied. She later told her friend that with her glasses, the back row was no problem. Yuta slumped over his desk, completely drained, while she happily hummed beside him. The next day, she showed off a new hairstyle, turning to him for his opinion. She quickly changed it, presenting another style for his review. Not satisfied, she tried a third look, again demanding feedback. A flustered Yuta finally snapped, asking why she always needed his approval. He observed that Isumi got a uniquely happy expression whenever she opened her pencil case. His paranoia kicked in as he peeked over, suspecting a picture of his brother was hidden inside. A closer look revealed it was lined with the same grumpy character from her keychain. He was baffled to see her getting excited over the simple pattern. The scene shifts as a classmate notes that Isumi's friend Urara isn't fawning over his brother. Another student asked Urara why, but she casually brushed it off. Urara struck a dramatic pose, proudly declaring her self-love outweighed any interest in him. Izumi praised her friend's confidence, a trait that Yuta and his friends found oddly calming. Later on a bus, Urara enthusiastically suggested a game of cards. While others eagerly agreed, Yuta remained engrossed in his book. Urara suddenly turned, asking if he was joining and pulling him into the group. He internally protested, furious at being roped in without consent. Before he could object, the cards were already being shuffled. The class was on an outdoor trip meant to strengthen their bonds. He flashed back to his friend Takamiya enthusiastically putting him and Isumi in the same group. A sense of unease washed over him as he assessed his chaotic group. He overheard other girls gossiping about his brother, deciding his current group was the lesser evil. On top of everything, he was stuck with Isumi, the person he was most wary of. His friends revealed the card game was to decide roles for making curry. Later, lost in a daze, he tried to snap back to reality as his friend called his name. The rules were simple. 3 people cook, 2 gather firewood, and the card game winner chooses. His friend whispered a dire warning, having heard from a senior that firewood duty was brutal. A fire ignited in Yuta's eyes as he vowed to win, unaware his friends found his desperation amusing. As the bus sped toward their destination, Yuta's resolve hardened. Losing was not an option. The group arrived at the campsite and began to gather for cooking. To his dismay, Yuta found himself on firewood duty, glaring at Izumi, who was inexplicably there with him. A flashback revealed his defeat, trying desperately to win while Isumi calmly outplayed him. She coolly explained their fate. The bottom 2 players got stuck with firewood, and he was dead last. The losing duo and their friend trudged up a steep slope, hauling heavy wood. Despite his annoyance, Yuta glanced back with a flicker of concern for Isumi. To his surprise, she wobbled under the weight, looking exhausted. Yuta himself struggled with the heavy load. Izumi dropped her bundle and struck a triumphant pose, acting as if the job was done. He noticed a determined look on her face just as a classmate called out. A kind-looking girl from their class approached, asking if they needed help. Yuta was caught off guard by her genuine concern. She offered her assistance with a warm smile. The other boys were moved to tears by her kindness, but Yuta remained unfazed. Just then, Izumi got uncomfortably close, startling him as she apologized for the wait. He scolded her for popping up out of nowhere, but she coolly replied she was just catching up. He watched her panting, confirming his theory that she was completely unathletic. Seeing her struggle, Yuta offered to take some of her load. She fiercely rejected his help, grabbing his arm and misinterpreting his concern. She pointed with determination, insisting they must hurry back before the curry was gone. Yuta turned away in exasperation, baffled by her stubborn pride. Just as he wrote her off, she offered a quiet, blushing thank you. She then called him a nice guy, a compliment he immediately and furiously denied. Their bickering stopped as they stared in horror at the dark, bubbling sludge in the pot. The rest of their group proudly presented the culinary nightmare they had dubbed curry. Yuta's stomach dropped as he spotted the secret ingredients: chocolate, honey, and yogurt. He recoiled in disgust, the foul taste sending him into shock. Taking control, he bravely tasted the sludge while Isumi nervously ate bread, avoiding the pot. Yuta immediately transformed into a commander, ordering his clueless friends to salvage their meal. As his team scrambled, Isumi watched him with keen interest, tasting a sample of his work. Her friend whispered, questioning if Yuta knew his way around a kitchen. One of his friends overheard, confirming Yuta was surprisingly experienced. The friend revealed Yuta even made his own bento, a fact that piqued Isumi's interest. His sudden competence drew a crowd as other girls flocked over. Thanks to his efforts, a plate of perfect-looking curry was finally ready. The entire group celebrated. Moved to tears by the delicious flavor, the group showered him with praise. Yuta tried to act cool but was secretly pleased he had saved the day. He nervously glanced over, anxiously waiting for a verdict from his most important critic. His anxiety grew as Isumi ate in silence. She finally turned with a blushing smile, her simple praise sending his heart into a frenzy. Yuta was completely flustered, questioning why her approval made him so happy. In a moment of boldness, he pointed out a grain of rice on her face, and she quickly wiped it away. He tried to regain his composure, telling himself her opinion didn't matter. As a teacher made an announcement, he couldn't help but wonder if her compliment was the real reason for his good mood, noticing more rice on her face. The teacher's voice cut through the air, presenting the next part of their trip. The teacher announced the next activity, a recreation event that had students buzzing. A woman in a safari hat enthusiastically revealed it was a mountain-themed treasure hunt. While others cheered, Yuta looked confused as Isumi listened with interest. The scene flashed back to the high-stakes card game, with Yuta agonizing over his choice. He stared intensely at Izumi's cards, determined to avoid last place. Izumi returned his stare impatiently, urging him to hurry. He flinched, flustered by her intense and close presence. Now it was her turn, and Yuta nervously held out his cards, one of which was the Joker. He subtly tried to shift them, hoping to trick her. A wave of relief washed over him as she picked a different card. His friends watched in amusement as he tried to manipulate the game. Convinced Yumi held the Joker, he decided to risk it all and take a card from his friend. But just as he moved, his friend snatched a card from Isumi's hand. The sudden grab left her momentarily stunned. Yuta erupted in frustration, accusing her of cheating while trying to wrestle the card away. In a chaotic scramble, he triumphantly yanked a card from her, celebrating his win. He beamed, certain he had avoided the Joker. But as he flipped it, his victory turned to ash. He held the Joker. Isumi gave a smug, knowing smile as Yuta realized he was played from the start. The guide's voice cut through his defeat, announcing the treasure hunt. As it began, his friends got hyped about the million-yen prize. Yuta remained skeptical, doubting the prize was real. Urara excitedly spotted a clue and rallied the group. He watched them run off, then noticed Isumi wasn't with them. To his surprise, she was shuffling along at a snail's pace, comically insisting she was walking. She gave him an annoyed look, clearly not appreciating his observation. His friend called back, having found the first riddle, and Yuta prepared to follow. He glanced at Isumi, sensing something was particularly strange about her today. They arrived at a sign with a quirky riddle about their teacher. The group faced three paths, forced to solve it to proceed. Yuta panicked over the impossible riddle while his friend reminded him of the prize. Just as the group gave up, Isumi calmly announced she had solved it. She confidently pointed the way, revealing the answer was bowling, much to everyone's confusion. A flashback revealed she remembered this obscure fact from a day their teacher mentioned it. Her friends were blown away by her sharp memory, while Yuta was just impressed she was awake. She then pestered him for praise, and he begrudgingly offered a sarcastic compliment. The rest of the group, however, showered her with genuine praise. He glanced over, grudgingly admitting she seemed to be doing fine. She caught his gaze and responded with a soft, blushing smile, leaving him flustered. Their victory was short-lived as they faced a wall of more school-themed riddles. Urara excitedly rallied the group, celebrating their progress. While his friends cheered, Yuta just watched, drained. His friend called out, but his attention shifted. He wondered why Isumi hadn't returned. He asked about her, and Urara confirmed she went for water but was taking a long time. With only 10 minutes left, Yuta grew concerned. The guide's announcement only deepened his unease. A close-up on Yuta's face revealed he was considering a worst-case scenario. He stared into the dense woods, the unsettling possibility that she was lost finally hitting him. His mind flashed with scenarios of her getting distracted or wandering off. Clenching his fist, he called out to his friends. He abruptly said he was thirsty, using it as an excuse to leave. His friends wished him luck, and he set off with a determined look. Yuta sprinted into the woods, worried Isumi's spacey nature had gotten her into trouble. He pushed on, convinced it was better to be safe than sorry. He finally spotted her by a path, calling her name with relief and exhaustion. Yuta approached, demanding to know why she wandered so far. She simply explained a sign promising treasure had tricked her, leaving him dumbfounded. Relieved, he told her they needed to rejoin the others. As they started walking, he noticed a slight limp in her step. He stopped her, his eyes fixed on her feet, asking if she was injured. Isumi stared in surprise, questioning how he noticed. He explained her strange behavior all day gave her away. He scolded her for hiding her injury, pointing out the danger of wandering off alone. He told her she shouldn't have pushed herself so hard for the trip. With a deep blush, she shyly admitted she was genuinely looking forward to the trip with him and their friends. Her heartfelt confession sent his own heart into a flustered rhythm. He was stunned to see such an unguarded expression on her face as she fiddled with her zipper. He reflected on how he'd always considered her an unreadable mystery. He turned away with a flustered huff, trying to process this new side of her. He internally dismissed her reason as childish, earning an annoyed look. He quickly retracted his statement, apologizing as she repeatedly bonked him on the head. With no other choice, he began the long trek back, carrying her through the forest. He gave her a piggyback ride, brushing off her apologies by insisting it was an emergency. She worried about being too heavy, but he just said she was surprisingly light and needed to eat more. She fondly recalled the fun she had, the memory overshadowing the pain. He couldn't help but tease her for getting blisters from the shoes she was so excited to wear. Yuta smirked, telling her that for all her mystery, she was quite easy to read. Her quiet denial made him pause, questioning if he understood her at all. She tightened her grip on his shoulder, her voice soft as she called his name. With genuine sincerity, she quietly thanked him for coming back to find her. Her sincere thanks left him blushing as he reflected on how he never used to trust her. He realized that maybe, just maybe, she was far simpler than the enigma he had made her out to be. A profound realization dawned on him, a turning point. His mind flashed back to the moment he found her, a memory that now felt significant. Back with the group, his friends fussed over him as he carried her, and he admitted to himself he was starting to believe in her. The guide cheerfully announced everyone had safely reached the end and found the real treasure. His friends, however, were in tears, demanding to know what happened to the prize. Their grand prize was revealed to be a mountain of dreaded classical literature workbooks. His friend suggested he take it, but he furiously tried to pass the terrible reward to a shocked Isumi. She simply turned away with a smug look, leaving him to deal with the books. Yuta apologized profusely, finally believing her injury was real as he asked to see it. He was shocked to see her bandaged foot, questioning why she had kept it hidden. She ignored his concern, instead giving him a smug look and calling his name mysteriously. Izumi praised his sharp observation skills, but Yuta was too flustered to appreciate it. A flashback revealed her excitement was from a mountain of snacks she bought for the trip. She's seen struggling to pack them, determined to bring enough for everyone. With great effort, she finally closed the overstuffed bag. Back on the bus home, she sighed in disappointment, admitting she never got to share them. Yuta overheard her quiet lament, his expression softening. He was suddenly jolted from his sleep on the bus. He woke to find Isumi presenting him with an armful of snacks as a thank you. The next day at school, a cheerful greeting introduced a new student, Hagawa. Hagawa turned with a radiant smile, her perfect appearance captivating the hallway. Nearby, a student struggled with a box, prompting her and her friend to notice. A boy offered to help, and she accepted with polite surprise. From a distance, students gushed over her, calling her the flawless beauty. Her sweet demeanor vanished as she suddenly whirled around, telling them to stop. She stepped in to shield Yuta's brother, scolding the crowd for bothering the school's idol. Hagawa then turned to Rei with a sincere apology while he looked on with cool indifference. Yuta's friends watched in awe, impressed by the new girl. Rei simply offered a polite, dazzling smile, brushing off her intervention. The other students were captivated, seeing Hagawa as an untouchable idol. Yuta's friends praised her, noting she was the only girl not fawning over his brother. The scene then cuts to the solitude of the girls' restroom. Inside, a hand frantically scribbled notes about Rei's scent and appearance. The perfect class rep was revealed to be Hagawa, a secret and obsessive fanatic. She recalled Rei's unexpected appearance, realizing he was only there to apologize to Yuta. Her obsession deepened as she decided watching him from a distance was not enough. She erupted in a private celebration, overjoyed at interacting with her idol. Her notebook revealed she had documented Rei's every move, but now she craved more. Her obsession shifted to his private life. She realized that to get to the idol, she needed to go through his younger brother. The next morning, she put her plan into action, greeting Yuta with a blindingly sweet smile. He, completely unfazed, barely acknowledged her. In her mind, however, she was a predator ready to extract every detail about Rei. She fumbled for an excuse to talk, nervously commenting on the weather. Changing tactics, she asked about their homework. She quickly offered to let him copy, a classic move. Yuta gave her a suspicious glance, sensing something was off. She forced a smile while hiding, silently fuming at his indifference. Alone in the restroom, her facade shattered as she raged over her bruised ego. She burst out of a stall, startling a classmate as she fumed. She recalled seeing him with Isumi, baffled that her plan to charm the supposedly easy target failed. A sinister smirk spread across her face as she concocted a new strategy. Her attention zeroed in on Izumi, identifying her as a rival for Rei's affection. She observed them talking, noting how close they had become. Izumi pointed out Yuta's homemade bento, creating the perfect opening for an eavesdropper. Hagawa practically drooled at the chance to listen in. She eagerly jumped into their conversation, trying to belittle his bento. She leaned in, feigning interest in their food preferences while secretly plotting. Isumi simply turned to Yuta and gave his bento a one-word review. Nice. Hagawa was utterly floored by the anticlimactic response. She fumed at Isumi's lack of follow-up, faking a dropped chopstick to hide her irritation. Leaning over Izumi's desk, she demanded to know why she'd ask about the bento with no ulterior motive. Izumi calmly held her chopsticks, internally noting that learning about Yuta was useless. Frustrated, Hagawa turned her interrogation on Yuta, demanding his favorite foods. Hagawa got uncomfortably close to Izumi, her intense gaze searching for an answer. Izumi simply gave a sly, blushing smile, suggesting they were both the same. Her cryptic comment left Yuta and Hagawa completely baffled. Yuta clutched his bento protectively, convinced Isumi was after his lunch. Meanwhile, Hagawa slumped in defeat, realizing her interrogation yielded nothing. She fumed, having learned more about the bickering pair than her true target. Her mind drifted to a fantasy where the dazzling Rei showed her gentle concern. Clutching her secret notebook, she blushed, reaffirming her obsession. With renewed determination, she vowed her next attempt would be a success. In her paranoid mind, she imagined Yuta and Isumi were deliberately hiding secrets about his brother. Later, Yuta arrived home and was immediately greeted by his brother's voice. He found Rei looking completely disheveled, a far cry from his public image. Yuta stared blankly, unfazed by his brother's messy appearance. He scolded his messy brother, pointing out his adoring fans would die of shock if they saw his true self.